Hi there. A pretty big casting leak just came out. According to Set Spies, they've confirmed seeing Aly Blackwood filming House of the Dragon Season 3. This is very surprising news because by this point we assumed she'd be cut from the show. This news comes from reliable leak source House the Dragons over on Twitter, and in turn the Set Spies that he's in direct contact with. So this isn't a rumor, even though we don't have a spy photo of her yet. But these are Set Spies who have confirmed to us we are actually on the ground where they're filming because they have sent us other photos. The photos that I've been reporting on in other videos for the past few days. So they've proven they're there. And House of the Dragons said, I confirmed this with multiple sources. I'm not going to tell you how, but they've been reliable before, so I believe them. That multiple Set Spies said that they saw what was unmistakably Aly Blackwood in full costume in the Riverlands army camp. And they even managed to identify the actress, Annie Shapiro. She spells Shapiro with an E instead of an I. She's a relative newcomer. Her breakout role was only 2 years ago in that modern war drama Red Skies. And more recently this year, she appeared in that World War II Southeast Asia drama, The Narrow Road to the Deep North. Annie Shapiro is actually from Australia, and I don't know what that implies about how extensive the casting search was. Was it a global search like they did for Rhaenyra? A lot of people come from all over the world to Britain to get acting roles, but I like to think it meant they put effort into the casting. But either way, this makes her the third Australian on House of the Dragon after Millie Alcock and also Ryan Corr, who was Harwin Strong in Season 1. Now, this is really exciting because by this point we were starting to lose hope. We had lost hope of seeing more Riverlands characters introduced. And Aly Blackwood is actually a fairly important one. Well, one of the main leaders in the Riverlands front in the book is young Benjicott Blackwood. That his father, Lord Samwell, was killed at the Battle of the Burning Mill, after which, because of primogeniture, he succeeded him as head of the house, even though Ben is only 11 years old. But it's a whole thing of he's young, but the war forges him into such a fierce fighter that 2 years later he's nicknamed Bloody Ben Blackwood. But Season 2 actually did mention Ben Blackwood by name. Not just alluding to him or, oh, my nephew. They said Benjicott Blackwood by name, but they invented that he has an uncle, Willem Blackwood. He wasn't in the book, but he was okay. Willem, who attacked the Brackens for Daemon with dishonorable tactics, then he got executed for it. Willem does mention, I'm regent for my nephew Benjicott. That did give us some hope that we'd at least get Ben, or maybe as a cameo. We didn't think he'd appear that much. Didn't really think that implied we'd get Black Aly. Here we are, that he doesn't have a regent as such. He's 11, but he's competent, so his unofficial chief advisor, aide-de-camp, and they're kind of a duo, is his young aunt, Samwell's young 16-year-old sister, Alysanne Blackwood. Well, her full name is Alysanne. That I like the detail Martin puts into this, that as Fire and Blood covers multiple centuries, if there's a popular monarch, people get named after them. That after Jaehaerys' sister wife, Good Queen Alysanne Targaryen, a lot of women of that generation going into by the time they're adults in the Dance of the Dragons, a lot of them are named Alysanne or Aly or variations on that. Think about it. I mean, Alicent Hightower. Alicent is a variation on Alysanne. It was a popular name at the time. I mean, after Robert's Rebellion, not as many children were being named Aegon or Rhaegar as the Freys used to be doing that. Like, you see 30-year-old Freys who were named Aegon. Well, that's when the Targaryens were in power. But even though her full name is Alysanne Blackwood, she's commonly known as Aly Blackwood. Black Aly because, well, she's tough. That she's sort of like a grown-up version of Arya Stark. that she's this tomboy, that she's a skilled hunter and horse rider and a deadly archer. That after Amos Bracken killed her brother Samwell at the Battle of the Burning Mill, later in the same battle she avenged her brother by shooting Amos through the eye with a weirwood arrow. Well, that's another thing, that the Blackwoods are one of the only major houses south of the Neck, really the only one that we know of, who still follow the old gods, like the Starks do. That they're basically a transplanted northern house in the Riverlands. So a lot like the Starks, they're strong with the old gods, and Black Aly saves a couple of weirwood arrows in her quiver for special occasions, because they're strong, possibly magical. She's 16 years old when the war starts, which is the legal age of adulthood in Westeros, so she's a young adult by their standards. I mean, consider, in the book version, Jon and Robb Stark were both 14 in the first book, aged up to 16 in the TV show. So for a 16-year-old in the book, that 18 to 20, the casting is fine. The casting pretty much matches. She's a young adult, so no problem there. Minor spoilers. Basically, as the war drags on, the core Riverlands characters who survive into the final stages, from start to finish, are Oscar Tully. Well, really, it's two brothers in the book. They condense them into one, but Oscar Tully, Bloody Ben Blackwood, and his aunt, Black Aly, and also Hugo Vance, though I don't think Vance will be a TV character, but I checked this for the purposes of the book wiki, that the only characters who fight and survive in pretty much every battle from Burning Mill through the Muddy Mess at the end are Bloody Ben and Black Aly. They are very prominent. That if you were to ever fully narrativize Fire and Blood into a full-length novel, they would be POV characters, just because they managed to survive through the whole thing. I mean, purely from attrition, the Riverlands get heavy hit, that like 3 Lord Darrys in a row get killed in 3 separate battles. That by the end, it's really just Oscar, Ben, and Aly. And they get nicknamed the Lads, even though they're called, the handful of surviving Riverland forces are led by 2 young boys and a girl, so they nickname them the Lads, even though one of them is a girl. And it's the Green Armies scoffing at that, they're the Lads, but they adopt the name with pride. We're the Lads. And that's a big thing in the book that the TV show, of course, abandoned. That if you don't bloody your army, they're inexperienced. That the Boltons are bullies, that Roose holds back his forces from actually fighting in heavy battles to save them from taking over the north once the Starks are weakened. But there's all these heavy implications. The Boltons are not battle-hardened because they avoided battle. Whereas the handful of Stark survivors and their surviving loyal vassals are very battle-hardened and are worth more disproportionately. Even in Robert's Rebellion, he mentions the fresh armies raised in the Crown Lands and by the Martells. On Rhaegar's side, they had more men, but they weren't as battle-hardened compared to the forces that have been following Robb the whole time. So even though that this pitiful remnant of the Riverlands armies are what's left, by the very end of the war, facing these unbloodied Baratheon armies, that your army is literally green on the green side, and we're this battle-hardened core of survivors who went through the whole war, with Oscar, Ben, and Aly. So she's really important just because if you were to say who the POVs were for the Riverlands front, it's basically these 2 or 3 characters are really important as a batch, the Lads. I don't know if we're going to get Bloody Ben next season or not. I hope so. I mean, we'll see how they play it. On top of that, she's just a popular character with the fans because she's like this grown-up Arya Stark, like Lyanna Stark was said to be. Horse-riding, unladylike, deadly archer, and not, I'm this female warrior like Brienne of Tarth where we have to make her big and muscle-bound. She can't win a sword fight against, a trained knight, but she is a deadly archer that playing to realistically what could she do, and scout and all of that, and she's really tough. And on top of that, she gets in a romance with Cregan Stark. We'll see what comes of that. But What does that imply about will we see Kragan again anytime soon? I don't know. I'm going to split off a rant podcast about that because it's speculative. We don't know. Realistically, I think that we wouldn't see Kragan with her next season, but when it happens in the books would be at the end of the war in season 4, maybe later. That eventually they have a romance when they meet up again at the end. Even if Kragan is in next season, he wouldn't be in the same part of the continent as her. But regardless, this is surprisingly good news. That by this point, I'd given up on Black Aly being in the show at all. Nor would I blame the TV writers. That there are other characters I would have given screen time ahead of this, like Kragan somehow, and into those plot mechanics and how do we work them in. It's just some people thought she's popular, she needs to be in. Well, given limited screen time, there's only so much you can do. I just, even from the start of season 2 onward, I just didn't think we were going to get Black Aly, and I didn't blame the writers for that. There's other characters, little things like Torin Manderley or stuff that you would introduce first that you wouldn't need to cast Black Aly, even though I know people really like her. So I'm really happy about this, don't get me wrong. I'd given up. I'd assumed she wouldn't be in it, so cautious optimism for season 3 that nothing I have heard about season 3 has turned me against it yet. That there's a condensation here, a condensation there, like have Daemon actually being in the Reach and stuff. Well, it's an army he's sent there. I don't feel that breaks his character arc or anything, but so far we've been getting positive news about season 3, and this is probably the biggest surprise, pleasant surprise so far. We are actually getting Black Aly Blackwood. Sorry I don't have a photo yet, but this is a casting leak that they said who the cast member was, so I rushed it out. I hope within a week or two we'll get spy photos of her in full costume. Please keep checking back frequently, like and subscribe.